If you're an agent who knows you're capable of more, but just needs the right environment to unlock it, listen up. I'm not just the host of this podcast, I'm also the team leader at Keller Williams Portfolio Realty in Midtown Toronto. Our agents consistently outperform the market in listings taken and sold. They have access to world-class training, and they get daily support and coaching from me and my entire leadership team. But what do they love the most? It's our culture. We believe in collaboration over competition. We believe that agents who work together should know each other. And most of all, we believe that a rising tide lifts all ships. So if you've ever thought, I wish I had stronger mentorship or a team that truly gets it, maybe it's time we had a conversation. If you're interested in a free, confidential 30-minute strategy call with me, send me a DM on Instagram. Now, let's get to the episode. Phil, I have to tell you, there's a couple of things that happened in the early days of me getting inculcated into your teachings. And I remember I was reading your book for the very first time. And as I was going, every single page, obviously, in your book, it's a new objection handle and sort of why it works. And it does talk about each one. So even if there's some cynicism going into the book, very quickly, you're like, okay, I understand that. So I was reading it once in front of my dad, and my dad looked at it, and he's not a salesperson, and he doesn't really believe in the value of, let's say, sales training because he's not a salesperson. And he saw me reading the book and that it says the magic words. And he said to me, you know, Oliver, there's no such thing as magic words. It doesn't work like that. And I don't want you going down this rabbit hole. So I said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, people make decisions that they want to make and they don't make decisions that they don't want to make. And there's nothing that you could say that's going to change that. So I said, okay, well, let's say if I called you and I said, hey, this is what I'm selling. Would you like to buy one? He's like, I wouldn't be interested in that. So then I said, okay, well, what if I called you and I said, hey, I'm not sure if this is for you, but this is what I'm selling. Would you maybe have a minute for me to tell you a little bit more about it? He's like, well, that certainly would change my feeling about your approach. I said, that's literally all this is. This book is not about making people do things that they don't want to do. It's just about continuing the conversations. Why does this stuff work?
I mean, the why is a big answer. The book Exactly What to Say is a book of 23 sequences of magic words. That's what it's positioned as. But it isn't 23 sequences of magic words. It's 23 deep-rooted principles of influence, persuasion, and psychology disguised as magic words. I've learned that if you try to teach people principles, they struggle to find examples. But if you teach people examples, they trip over principles. So what you're looking at, even with the example or sequence of words, is, I'm not sure if it's for you, but is you're talking about the power of the creation of a curiosity gap. If you can insert something that has a curiosity gap into a conversation, it creates tension. Now, if you create tension, you capture attention. And if you have attention, you are now pulling and not pushing. Like, that is the science of it in a very abbreviated way. But that is the science that's attached to just one of the sequences of words in there, is that what we're talking about is how do you add more intentional curiosity to your ask that makes it a lot harder for the other person to not explore the next step in the adventure. And if you're wondering what a curiosity gap is, it's the same reason that you decide to watch a single episode of a Netflix show before you go to bed, and then it's 3 a.m. in the morning and you finish the season. It's because the writers were capable of creating curiosity gaps at the end of each episode and then rolling it into the next one, where you're like, I've got to see what happens next. I've got to see what happens next. I've got to see what happens next. So the book is prompts. That's all it is. It's prompts that allow you to be able to advance, enhance, or accelerate decision-making inside of a conversation.
So is it 23 different principles disguised as examples, or are they 23 examples disguised as maybe 5 principles?
I mean, each of them is a very clear principle if it was to be documented. But some of the research, some of the studies, some of the insights that go into why that example is being utilized, repeat. Some of them are overlapping in slightly different ways. But just like a toolbox full of tools, all of those tools have a very precise purpose, but some of those tools could be used for multiple purposes too. Like, have you ever used a flathead screwdriver to deal with a crosshead screw? Yes. Might not be ideal, but did it get the job done? Yes. Right? And have you used something to hit a nail that wasn't a hammer? Yeah, we've all done that too. So they have precision and purpose, but they're not... There is value that travels through the whole book as well. That is a number of big overarching principles.
Usually when I'm I suppose challenging someone that's pretty much batting 99%, I come from a place of humility. So I do want to ask you a question, something from my experience that you very much advise against doing, but I've done it and it actually works. And I want to know why I'm wrong. So the worst thing to say at the start of a conversation is, have I caught you at a good time? Is this a good time?
Yeah.
The answer is, what do you want? So for me, when I don't like to say, have I caught you at a good time? I say, have I caught you at a bad time? Because obviously we're looking for a no, and when the no means yes. But the reason I like to say this is because if I'm calling someone cold and I don't start with that, usually the first objection is, this actually isn't a good time for me, as opposed to if I start with the right tonality saying, is this a bad time right now? There's enough curiosity in there that they're okay to kind of continue the conversation. They want to know what I'm calling about, and they now come and say, you've actually got me at a bad time. So I want to know, that's what works.
I do not have a challenge with you calling somebody saying, have I called you at a bad time? And there's methodology that is being provided around this, and Chris Voss has put a ton of work around positioning that as a way to be able to start a call with a stranger. My challenge with it is the reason why it works. The reason why it works is because you trigger a curiosity gap in the other person, not necessarily for the right reasons. If you received a call from a stranger that said, have I caught you at a bad time? What is your assumption that they might be needing to connect with you about?
Probably a problem.
Yeah. So what happens is you give them the remaining seconds in the conversation because you were fearful that what they had to be able to share with you was less than idealistic news. So what you did is you got to the outcome that you were looking for, but you didn't necessarily get there with the right energy existing in the other person. So they feel somewhat bait and switched because you haven't actually built a frame of reference for why your conversation is important. What you've done is said, have I got you at a bad time? You're almost certainly going to get somebody that picked up the phone to say, no, now it's good. You best just have something remarkably valuable that's the other side of this conversation. And if what you were calling them for was to see if they were giving consideration to maybe putting their home on the market, I feel a little cheated. Not enough to be like, you cheated me, just enough to be like, oh, I'm not sure I love this guy. So it might get you in the game, but you're now in the game 2-0.
I know it's kind of a really hard game to play with cold leads, and I know that's why a lot of what you advise is to call people that are warm in some capacity.
Yep.
But if I don't start in that way, like I'm starting the game from 5 goals down without doing anything like this, you know what I mean? So at least now I have an opportunity to present the value. That's sort of how I approach it. And again, I want to say it again.
Right? You call me and you say, I caught you at a bad time, and I say no, what's up? Where do you go from there?
Well, so then, my script is I'm basically a version of, I'm not sure if it's for you. Would it be crazy for us to get together to map out a business plan for this year?
And who are you calling it?
I'm calling realtors.
Okay. And they say what following that?
Well, it's either, no, it wouldn't be crazy, in which case that's basically a yes, and then I go into a quadrant-based conversation, or they say, actually, yeah, no, it's not a good idea. I'm not interested right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of efficacy in your approach. It's fast. It gets to the point remarkably quickly. It requires a level of charisma and charm and energy and enthusiasm to carry that some have and some don't. And it potentially hits a lot of friction. Yet still you haven't built a frame. What you've done is we can talk about a lot of things in this conversation because there's a frame of reference in that we are on a podcast discussion that we both agreed to be able to show up to, and we both have an allocated period of time to be able to talk about what we're talking about to a group of people that's predetermined. That is a frame. When you meet somebody for a drink in a bar, that's a frame. When you are showing up to somebody for a listing appointment, there is already a pre-built frame. There is purpose for the conversation that allows us to then be able to play within those rules, right? There is already a field of play that has been created. We can now play inside that field because there are some degree of known rules or known expectations. When you jump into a call and say, have I got you at a bad time? What you've done is you've created chaos.
No, I think it's a curiosity thing more so. I understand.
Yeah, and also, like, I admire your vivaciousness. I admire your bullishness. This is hitting on somebody hard. That's what it's doing, right? If you just played this as a dating call, that it was, you saw somebody in a bar that you quite liked, and you walked over to the group and said, "Have I caught you at a bad time?" They'd say, "Well, no, what's up?" And you say, "Well, would it be crazy if we spent the rest of the evening together and we talked about life, the universe, and everything?" Like, that's what you're doing.
Yes.
The ones that say yes might not be the ones that you would be happy to say yes.
Okay, I'm seeing this. So, okay. So how would you go about building a frame out of the gate then?
The technique that we teach people to build frames is the technique that's shared in the real estate book, which is OFQ, which is opening fact question. And the safest way to start any conversation, regardless of skill set, charisma, regardless of what you have as abilities, is to give thoughtful thought ahead of time to say, what is my polite opening? What is a mutually agreeable fact? and then what is an easy to answer question. And I'll share with you how this could look by alternative. So you're calling a realtor because you want to explore the possibility of them potentially looking to align with you and for you to be able to grow business together, right? Like that's the outcome that you're looking for.
Correct.
So your polite opening is like, hey, this is Oliver. Like that works. That's pretty easy. What is a mutually agreeable fact? Now, a mutually agreeable fact is something you both know to be true. This is your passport into the conversation. What is true to you and also true to them? See if we can explore what that could be.
Turbulent market right now.
Subjective.
Okay.
Not necessarily mutually agreeable.
I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse here because everyone keeps on talking about tariffs and, again, global chaos, but that is just the easiest one to talk about.
Could be. Could be. People could be tired of talking about it.
Yes.
I'm looking for a mutually agreeable fact. Are you calling new agents or experienced agents?
Experienced agents.
Do you know enough about them that means that they found themselves on a call list? Like, I understand that you're currently part of Roller Page and that you've been in the business for the last 12 years.
Yes, there you go.
Right? So this is now no longer cold because what I'm doing is I'm hitting a show me that you know me button into the conversation. Hey, this is Oliver calling, just a quick call. Understand that right now that you're with Roller Page, you've been there around 12 years and you're still in the real estate business, right?
I see.
And they're going to say,
yeah.
Yes. Then I got a chance for some very quick rapport building. One mistake that often is made by people is that they are terrible at building rapport. So what they do is they try to build rapport around small talk. Even in the real estate business, you talk models like Ford of family, occupations, recreations, dreams, and there's a place for that, but it starts to feel like you're trying to force yourself too quickly. What you'd really want to do after opening fact question is just explore a questioning arc that is past, present, future. Now, in this somewhat cold call, I've used the knowledge that I know about them, and then I put an easy to answer question that is like, hey, you're still in the real estate business, right? You're in this for a minute? And they'll be like, yeah, I am. I've now got a small window of time where I can data collect, not steamroll. What would I do? I'd be like, well, how's your year been working out so far? And what are they going to say?
I've had better years, but it's not the worst I've had either.
That's past up to present. Okay, so what are you seeing in the market right now?
A lot of interest from buyers, but everyone's just too scared to pull the trigger.
Okay, so what do you have in place to be able to change that, to control your destiny, to be able to help the next 12 months continue to grow?
Just trying to follow up and provide value as much as possible.
And how much longer do you see yourself in the business?
I'd like to be doing it until I retire, and I'm 40, so maybe another 15, 20 years.
And see the frame I've now built?
Yes, 100%. It's a different world. So
okay, then say, what do you understand about all of your options when it comes to being able to grow a real estate business in the Greater Toronto area? And they're going to say not much. I'd say that you currently work with XYZ brokerage. Like, how did you go about choosing them? They'd tell me. I'd say, what has your experience been like working with them so far? They'd tell me a load of good news. I'd say, what 3 things do you like best? They'd tell me. I'd say, if there's one thing you could change, what would the one thing be? They'd tell me. I'd say, when was the last time that happened? They'd tell me. I'd say, how often does that happen? They'd tell me. I'd say, for how long has that been a concern to you? They'd tell me.
I've used that last one, by the way, the what's 3 things you love and what's 1 thing you change. And that is, I mean, I think every one of them is a cheat code, but that one is incredibly effective.
And the point, though, Oliver, in much of this, and this again is something that doesn't get talked about enough inside the real estate business, is many of these sequences of words are really useful in a variety of different moments. And you can be like, I used that one, that's like a cheat code, that's a hack, and it's true. But more than all of that is you have to get in position to be able to utilize these words for the right circumstances at the right time. And everything that I did in that role play was to get to a position for them to tell me what they don't like about their current circumstances. But I used 12 to 15 progressions in a conversation to get to a position that I could take the shot I wanted. And so many amateur and inexperienced agents are literally trying to take the shot. And it's often talked about in the world of sport, right? Look at a basketball player is you've got to take X number of shots to score Y number of baskets. You've got to score X number of shots to score Y number of baskets. That's only part of the truth. You have to get into the position to take those shots and then take X number of shots to get Y number of baskets. If they were just taking shots from inside their own half, what would their conversion rate be?
Anyone except for Steph, it wouldn't be high.
Right. It would be a lot less than it would be than if you're in the right position to be able to take that same shot. Your conversion rate gets higher. And nobody's talking about how do you utilize language to more effectively get into the position to be able to make the asks that you're looking for. People are like, how do I ask? And the result is people ask in the right way at the wrong time and get the wrong result. There's nothing wrong with the words that you have there. It's like, would it be crazy if? I like it. But too soon, it feels pushy.
Yes.
Even after I've created a problem and some chaos and some confusion and they're not double down on loving where they're at, you'd be like, hey, would it be crazy if we could get together and maybe share some ideas about business planning as to what it could look like differently if you were to maybe approach business growth in a different way than you are right now? They'd be like, that wouldn't be crazy at all. You see, now I haven't trick them into being it. It feels like a gift and not an ask. The would it be crazy preface is received with love and compassion and excitement. The would it be crazy preface question too early, even when I say yes, I'm like, that's a little bit crazy.
Right.
Let's come back to the dating analogy. Like, would it be crazy if I booked a set of flights for us to be able to go away for a couple of weeks together, even though we've just met? Well, yeah, kind of. Somebody still might say yes. But having had some meaningful back and forth and experienced a relationship, and it feels like this is the direction of travel we're going in anyway. Hey, would it be crazy if we were to maybe take some time and maybe book some flights and go away together for a week? No, it wouldn't be crazy at all. Like, you want the answer to be no, it wouldn't. It would actually be joyful. But what you're doing is you're actually getting people to be like, well, it wouldn't be that crazy, a little crazy, but sure. So what you're doing is you're attractive to crazy people, chaos chasers.
Right. And I hear what you're saying, and just to kind of push it farther, the meetings that I get a lot of the time are like, sure, yeah, like I'm game. I'll listen. I'm game. I'll give you a shot. Like you said, like,
now dance, Mikey boy, dance. Show me what you got. Come tell me the magic that you have that's different to what other people have.
Right. Which is almost like when someone says you're a good salesman. It's not really what you want.
What they're doing is they're giving you permission to audition for a job that they don't want.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm happy I asked that question.
Well, and the point on this, although, Oliver, is everything works. I share insights around cold calling and different ways to be able to approach it. And people are like, no, you're wrong, Phil. Cold calling still works. Yes, it does. Everything works. You send 10,000 mailers, it'll work. Somebody will reply. You send 10,000 emails, it'll work. You make 10,000 calls, it'll work. But how much do you bruise on the way to you getting the byproduct of some of them working? So even approach this into a different area. Is email comms are big in the real estate space, correct?
Yeah.
And we've spent a decade of looking at how technology can help accelerate a business. How do you get people into your smart plans and your drip campaigns and into your CRM with various levels of automation? And where do you have people on emails that are going out on repeat, on repeat, on repeat? How many of those emails are truly relevant to the person that is receiving them?
Not many.
So every time you send something to somebody that's not relevant, what does it do to your equity inside that relationship?
It lowers
does it
it
increase or
significantly.
decrease? Lowers it significantly. So people say, well, I'm doing it because it's better than nothing. But in many circumstances, nothing would be better. The last decade in real estate has been trained as a numbers game. Like, just make the calls, make the calls, make the calls, make the calls, and you'll get enough out the other end. And it's true. You will. And if you're running a brokerage of scale, tell everybody to make the calls and it might impact your number quicker. But the collateral damage that's happening on everybody that's communicated to badly means that when you hit a finite number of opportunities, which is where the market is at right now, you got no more moves to make.
It's almost
That's
like
where a lot of agents are.
It's almost like we're looking at it like it's a dichotomy. Like there's two ways of looking at it, where it's you can have the best shot in the world, but if you never take a shot, you'll never score, and that is true. And the only alternative that we look at is, so it would be better to just chuck a bunch of shots up at the rim and hope that one of them goes in, and one of them will go in. So this way is better than this way, and that is again 100% true. But those aren't our only two options. That's not how you build a winning team.
There's a third option, and that's what pros do, right? You look at the pro in every area of the world. They've got an obnoxious number of reps, and they do the work to be able to get into the position to be able to deliver excellence in the moments that matter. Mm-hmm. Like, why does Steph Curry take hours after practice taking the exact same jump shot from the exact same point on the court?
Because it translates.
And what it means is that there's a level of confidence that when it's game day, when he's in a scenario that resembles that in any way, shape, or form, he's got a level of belief in himself and his own abilities that in that moment, he's got the repertoire to be able to reach from. Does it mean that on game day, he's going to deliver that exact same jump shot? Almost certainly not. But he has it as a benchmark to be able to then work from.
Right.
And what does it often then result in is other players know that if you can get Steph into that position and you can get him the ball, there's a strong possibility that he'll get it in the basket. But if you give him the ball in a position that's different to that, his conversion rate is lower.
You said something before. I'm not sure if this is going to be easy to quantify it, but you spoke about what you say, how you say, and where you say it.
Yeah, and when.
And when. I don't know if it's easy to quantify, but what would you say is the most important factor between those?
When?
What makes you say that?
Take this out of the world of real estate and position it into some of the high value relationships that live inside our life. Parenting, either whether it's upwards or downwards, relationships with significant others. How often have you known exactly what to say and how to say it, but the time has now passed?
So I'm thinking of this in the frame as a parent. I have 3 kids. Quite frequently, I think. I usually try not to say anything if I don't know what to say, and I go and regroup and then I come back, but quite often.
Yeah. So your default position is silence because you didn't know what to say in the moment. The moment is more important than what to say. And actually, the first principle that lives inside of our entire body of work at exactly what to say is the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment where you're saying it. And people think that it is about doing work ahead of time, and it's part of that. But actually, what it's more about is identifying the moments that have the greatest level of impact inside your daily existence. Even look at conversations with your kids. So age range of yours, Oliver, is what to what?
A 7-year-old daughter, 2-year-old son. Those are my oldest and youngest.
So I know for sure that I don't get as much one-on-one time with my 6-year-old twins as I would like because busy schedule, often all in the same household together. So teachable connection learning moments with my littles is a challenge. So I can have all the right things to say. I can understand all the principles that I have within my whole body of work, and I can have all of the ability in the land to be able to connect and educate and translate information. But if I don't create the moment, or I'm not ready for the moments that exist, how likely am I to influence the thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and actions of my children?
Not as likely because the rapport isn't there to the same extent.
Because I can know what to say and how to say it, but if I'm not in the when, all of those other factors are irrelevant. See, the 60% competence at the right time is better than 100% competence at the wrong time.
Fascinating.
And what happens in many sales conversations is people peak too soon. One of my favorite phrases on the planet is the second mouse gets the cheese. What happens to the first mouse?
Gets killed.
Mousetrap. But the lesson in the fact that the second mouse gets the cheese isn't don't be first, it's be second. How do you intentionally be second? If 100 mice wanted that cheese, first mouse gets caught in the mousetrap, you're still competing with the other 99. How do you get to be second? Well, that's a level of intention and patience. You've got to wait till the other guy goes first, and then you have to be ready to be next. That's what often happens in the conversion-related conversations that we have with the people we're looking to influence. They need to get to the point of like, yes, I think that's what I want to do. And then you need to be right there. Think about the should I or shouldn't I buy a house at this period of time? The should I or shouldn't I sell my house at this period of time? If you are there after they've decided that they definitely want to sell, where they now have the voices and opinions of 30, 40 different strangers, and that you're the third agent through the door, how much more work do you have to do to be able to win that position? Whereas if you were the only person they were talking to from the start and you were involved in helping to direct traffic before they started to go to the internet and ask for the opinions of strangers, how much easier is it to convert now? And what that means for a lot of real estate agents is to stop trying to win the 30, 60, 90 day game and start trying to win the 30, 60, 90 month game with your prospects and your leads. It's play a longer game, get into position earlier. Here's one of the classic examples of where people get this wrong. What role does a CMA play in your business, Oliver?
I mean, it's supposedly it plays the value is here's how much your home is worth, and so let's start a conversation, supposedly.
Yeah. And what do most people do? They create it, they send it, and then they chase it.
Okay.
If the goal was to get into position and to note that the second mouse wins the cheese, should you send it without permission, or should you work to get them to ask for it?
Certainly the latter.
See, if I framed the conversation out and we used opening fact question even with a past client, and I could say, hey, Oliver, it's Phil calling from Keller Williams. I can't believe that it's been nearly 3 years since that you moved into 123 Main Street. You guys still living in and enjoying the house? You'd say what?
Great. Love it. Thank you.
And I'd say, well, what's happened over the last 3 years? What's happened? Bring me up to speed. And you'd tell
Thank God we had quadruplets, and now our playroom is not big enough, and we need a new house.
And I'd say, well, what's the current situation? And you've already pretty much told me. And I'd say, well, like, how soon are you looking to get moved? There's a future-based question. And you'd say, what?
Well, I don't know if right now we're looking to move just because the market's crazy and we want to make a financially smart decision. But I mean, if a house was offered to us for free, we'd move tomorrow.
Okay. Well, when was the last time somebody gave you an accurate understanding of what a house like yours would fetch in a market like this?
Honestly, probably since we bought it with you.
Okay. And what have you done to the house since you moved in?
Built a new patio at the back.
Anything else?
Nope, just made it our own.
So would it help if we could pull together a report and share some insights on how the market's moved and also what difference those upgrades you've made to the backyard would make to the potential value of a home? Help you make some smarter decisions?
Yeah, certainly couldn't hurt.
And if I can get that done in the next 48 hours, when would it be a good time for us to talk about what it teaches us?
Yeah, let's say early next week.
Right? That's what I mean by being patient and getting into position. Is you just asked me for a CMA, and we've just scheduled an appointment to better talk about what those insights share us so we can make a data-driven decision about where we go from next. Instead, what most agents would have done is early in that conversation to say, tell you what I'll do for you is I'll get you a CMA and I'll share with you some data from our systems about what your house might be able to worth. I'll get that to you and I'll send it, and then I'll follow it up, I'll chase, and I'll check in. But I didn't do that. My alternative is I danced up to a conversation where they told me it might be helpful, and then they requested it from me.
Right.
Now my value is higher. Same action, but I'm more valuable than the agent that is sending and chasing.
I want to get into some role playing, but I know we're running very short on time. So just one more question before we get into that. Obviously, in a sales business, you operate within the framework of human nature. And I think that might sound like obvious to people who maybe are listening to this. But if you, like we said at the beginning, with my approach, which by the way does work, but not in the frame that we're looking for, it doesn't necessarily follow the frame of human nature, because human nature just wants to know, again, what are you calling for? That's not the way I started. And that was a really effective script. And I think if you're looking at other sales trainers, I'm certainly not going to name names, but it's less about using human nature to naturally funnel the conversation. The word that you used was dance, and I like that. What it is based on what you said, here's the corner you find yourself in. If you want to get out of this corner, you got to go through me. So It's very reliant and heavy on human nature. So I believe you're in the people business. Sales is just a medium that you do that through. What's something that you've learned about people that most people or sales trainers maybe don't realize or don't utilize enough?
I mean, there are thousands of things. If I'm to try and give a concise answer to this question, is to remember that people will move for their reasons and not yours. So there is nothing you can say that you think is valuable that is going to translate towards the other person. What there are, though, is there are 3 reasons why anybody will move to do anything, and they need to be their reasons, not yours. They will move to become more comfortable. They will move to run from something that's making them uncomfortable, or they will move to do something that triggers a feeling of pride or self-satisfaction or increased status in their own version of self versus self. So you're going to run towards something that's going to make you more comfortable. You're going to run away from something that's going to make you uncomfortable, or you're going to do something that's going to light you up inside. What most training programs teach is to say, go find the pain point, go dig deeper, probe. And we're looking to be able to use merely discomfort as the tool to be able to get somebody to be able to make an action today. That is only one lever. And what people have is they have their current situation, and they have this consequence-based, pain-based questioning technique that says, well, if you don't move, life's going to get worse. If you can spend more time in curiosity, what you can actually do is create an insane amount of space. So if what I can do is I can question somebody towards the consequences of them not doing something and help them understand the discomfort of not changing today, I can also question them towards the reality of the increased level of comfort, and I can question them towards realizing that it will be worth it in the long term and it will light them up inside. The only option that they can no longer pick is to do nothing. And the greatest cost to every salesperson is indecision. It's not people choosing your competitor, indecision. So what most people train towards is they train towards that somebody is going to buy something, and how do you get them to choose you over somebody else? Well, actually, the greater expense is all the people that choose to do nothing. When if I can question somebody towards the, if you don't do this, this will be the consequences. And if you do this, this is how much more comfortable you'll be. And when you do this, then it's going to mean this for you, your life, your universe, and your family. You definitely want to move, because you want to run from that towards that and know it's worth it. And the principle I'm talking about here is the contrast principle. People often say, here's where you're at and it'll be worse if you don't. Here's where you're at and it'll be worse if you don't. Or here's where you're at and look how much better it'll be if you move. Or here's where you're at and here's how much better it'll be worth it for the long term. But what if I say that somebody's here and I say, well, here's what happens if you don't. Here's what happens if you do. And then here's what makes it worth it in the long term. How much space have I created around their current situation that says, well, I definitely now want to do something. And the most obvious something to do is the thing that you're talking to me about doing. There's a lot of complexity in that answer, but it should be helping people to realize that you don't want one good reason why somebody should do something. You want them to help them realize that there's no good reason they shouldn't.
Well, that's a bar. I'm gonna have to write that down and put that on my wall. Say that one more time. You're not trying to get them to
We shouldn't
realize.
be looking for the one good reason why somebody should do something. We should help them realize there's no good reason they shouldn't.
So, Phil, I know we're kind of at the end of the episode right now. I want to go through some role-playing, or at least understanding the role-playing cards. So there's 6 categories. Rejection-free openings, that one's pretty self-explanatory. Staying in the game, that's one of the categories. When would that be relevant?
Staying in the game really is my interpretation of objection handling. So these are the moments where you feel like you would normally be losing a conversation. You'd be looking to be able to potentially give up. Maybe it's a tail between your legs moment where what you're saying is, well, okay, I'll leave it with you. We're ready when you're ready. These are all tools that means that instead of giving up, you can stay in the conversation a little longer and maybe find an angle to be able to help somebody realize that your idea is a good idea.
So the second one that I want to look at is perspective changers. For me, I would say perspective changers is like 80% of what I do. So
Yep.
what that means for me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, is if someone says something like, well, my relative or my friend is a real estate agent, that perspective is, and they do the same job as you. And the reason that a perspective changer is essential here is because you could say, that's fine. That doesn't really affect what we're talking about here because that person is different than me and there's different results. So I want to go, would you say that that's a fair synopsis? Okay, so I want to go through different situations. Let's say we're at a listing appointment and you're my agent.
Yep.
And I say to you, Phil, you seem like a great guy. You got some great things to offer here. My friend is a real estate agent, so I'm kind of leaning towards working with that person. How would you change my perspective there?
I would probably say, firstly, well, what do you understand about the differences that could exist between the type of agent you could work with in a transaction as complex as this?
Well, from what I understood, most agents kind of just do the same thing. They sell the house, they put it up on the MLS, and yeah.
And what is your personal experience of selling homes in this neighborhood historically?
Not in this neighborhood. I've never sold a home here.
Okay, and what is your experience of selling houses generally?
This is my second home that I own. So I've sold my first home I sold before. It was a pretty hot market, so it was pretty basic. To be honest, I think any realtor would have been able to do it.
And what has been your experience of hiring your friends to do, high impact professional services inside any area of your life?
I haven't done that yet.
Okay. Well, and how certain are you in a situation like this that you would like to be able to turn a friendship into a professional engagement?
It's a good question. I think if you phrase it like that, I'm not sure that I'm certain I want to do that, but I do want to help out a friend.
Okay. And how certain are you that you want this sold for the most money in the shortest period of time?
Yeah, that's what I want.
Okay. And when was the last time that you asked that friend to do something important in your life?
Nothing too important.
Okay. And how important is it to you that you not only get the result that you want here, but you also help maintain the friendship?
Yeah, that's very important. Maintaining the friendship, 100%.
Like on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being you'd quite like it to happen, and 10 being it's kind of a non-negotiable.
I would say 8, maintaining the friendship. He's a very good friend, but probably about 9 that I get. Well, 10, honestly, that I get what I need when I need it in terms of price and timeline.
Okay. And how would you feel if results aren't going the way that you would like through the sale process, and you have to have some tough conversations with that friend about what they have or haven't done to be able to help get this sold?
Yeah, that would be pretty rotten.
And how would you feel if my alternative is that your friend could remain a friend, and that based on the proceeds and the experience that you have through selling this with an experienced professional, that you get to be able to bring that friend for the ride and help them have a front row seat for experience? And I mean, if you really want to compensate them, you could possibly compensate them out of part of your proceeds.
Yeah, if there's a world that I could get what I want to maintain my friendship, then that's obviously ideal.
Well, just imagine how much easier this would be for you if you could entrust it to somebody who's done it before, done it recently, done it for someone like you, and that you're not blurring those lines between friendships and professional services. And I would then say, well, look, could it be possible that there's a benefit in keeping friendship and professional separate?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're looking to maintain the friendship, then the last thing you're going to want to do is turn friendship into work. If you're looking to sell your house for the most money in the shortest period of time, you're going to want somebody that is an experienced professional. And if what you're looking for is a team of professionals that can get this done for you, then you're speaking to the right people.
Yeah, it definitely changes the approach 100%, the way I feel about it, and questions my convictions. What's really the most important to me.
And all I'm doing is I'm zooming out and I'm helping you look at the bigger picture from a different perspective, that when you zoom back in again, you find a different vantage point than the one you had previously. But I'm not telling you to change your mind. I'm helping you see it from a different perspective. That means that you might go on to change your own mind. And what my belief is, stepping into that, is you were absolutely right to think what you think based on the information you had. Choosing your buddy, makes sense. If everybody's the same, why would you not? But by zooming out and helping you see more insights, you could be like, oh, it isn't all the same. The risk is higher. This might cost me more to be able to use my friend, both in terms of outcome and subjective challenges through the relationship with the friendship. And I was sure a minute ago, and now I'm not so sure. As a result of which, thank you for helping me see the bigger picture. And as a result of which is my level of trust is now transferred to somebody who didn't pressure me into doing something that was wrong, just help me see it from a different point of view.
Phil, I want to thank you not only for your time here, but for changing the approach in my whole career. I operate the way that you teach, and I can't believe that I didn't know about you for as long as I didn't know about you. And since I have, literally everything has changed in the way that I operate on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for coming. Thank you for writing your book. Thank you for creating these cards. We use them every Monday with our office, and they're incredibly valuable. And honestly, keep on doing what you're doing, because you're going straight to the top. That's my honest belief.
Thank you, Oliver. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege. Thanks for taking some time to chat with me today.